unless you're in a big city. Now, I'm not sure if that's 100% true anymore, but like having that kind of like community of real people there that kind of be like, oh yeah, Josh is a mixer, go check, just at a bar. Like you can't like.
Well, the thing is like people don't understand it anywhere else, Like in Nashville, the question isn't like, oh, what do you do? It's like, what part of the music thing do you do? Like they just get it more. Whereas like, when I was living back in Jersey, it'd be like, oh, you make music? That's cool. But down here, it's like, oh, I make music. And they're like, oh, we already get that. Like, we know you're in Nashville. Of course you make music. Like,
what do you do?
Are you an artist? Are you a producer? Are you a songwriter? Are you a mastering engineer? Like, do you know what I mean? It's more of like, cool, So, it just goes without saying that like you're artsy down here essentially. But yeah, I think it's the community that keeps you like wanting to do it, like, because the internet, there's something fatiguing about the internet to me, where it's like, it's great and community's awesome and it exists, but there's something that happens with the screen, I think, that becomes fatiguing, that it's easier to like get jaded or like burnt out on. But like when you hang out in person, and this is maybe different for other people, who are maybe a little less social. Not that I'm a huge social person by any means, but there's something about the energy of like being in real life and being at a show and like hanging out with your friends that I think isn't as fatiguing, or fatiguing in a different way than like a social media thing.
I totally vibe with that. Yeah, it's like, it's inspiring. Like for me, when I do an interview,
inspiring. It's a good one.
I always walk away inspired and jazzed to work on the music, right? Like when I'm scrolling on YouTube or more often like Instagram or Facebook, and I see what other people are doing and like asking questions, I just get like, I don't even want to deal with this. I just want to check out. The industry is so annoying. Like I find it annoying when I see it on the internet. And when I talk to somebody in real life who's working on stuff and I ask them questions and they ask me questions and it's like a real dialogue, I'm just like so hyped to work on music afterwards. Like I get so inspired from talking to people in that maybe because it's really personal, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you lose the nuance of communication, I think, with typing or even through video or whatever that becomes. Whereas, when you're in person, there's not that like extra second to like put on a front or to like think about your answer. You're kind of just responding in a way that does come from emotion and passion. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, and that's why, I love Nashville. I don't know that I'll like die here, I'll maybe move away just to have space someday. But like the community is like unmatched as far as that goes, like you walk out your door and you're just meeting people who are inspiring, even if you don't work together, even if they're in a totally different genre, or even if they're in a totally different like area of art, like it's not just music down here. I mean, there's tons of like small business owners, there's tons of like just entrepreneurs, there's a ton of just like artists in general, like making different types of art. So it's very inspiring. And that's not to say just Nashville's like that. I mean, you could probably find that in most cities to some extent.
Yeah.
But Nashville's the South and it's a little homier than some cities, I think. So it's a little more welcoming in that sense. But
yeah, I feel that. So speaking of that, where's your work coming from these days? Like how are artists finding out about you? How are you, getting your leads, so to speak?
Yeah, getting my leads. I mean, at this point, everybody always asks me that, and it always immediately like throws a red flag in my mind that like, oh, I need to do better at like actually finding work, because at this point in my career, like I just, for better or worse, like wait for the phone to ring, which it usually just rings every day, So it's sort of just...
That's a good place to be.
Kind of, but it's also a scary place to be because, what if it doesn't ring today?
Right.
I don't have any systems for like reaching out to people or like getting work. So it'd be kind of like, oh, okay, I actually have to try now, which sounds so pretentious for me to just sit here and be like, oh, people call me. But I think you do just get to a point in your career where that just starts to happen. Like you just kind of become, not that like I'm a household name or anything, but people talk, and they see what you did with one song and then they call you for the next, or you start working with artists who just get more successful and they start putting out more songs. So that keeps you more busy. And then people know that band and then they go, oh, well, or that band's like producing for another band. That's especially here in Nashville, that's entirely true, where like, everybody's a songwriter producer. So like they might have their band that I work for. And then, the singer, somebody goes off and records for another band or writes with them and goes, oh yeah, man, like we cut this demo, but like, yeah, Josh, he'll mix it like he does all our band stuff. So that's kind of the cycle of where I'm at, you know, in my career now, of just that sort of thing. And that's not to say there's not occasionally like somebody that I'll stumble upon and be like, oh, this is like, that to me is what TikTok is. Like, I just try and spend a few minutes every day just scrolling, and my, you know, For You pages just become artists or songwriters or people. So occasionally there's something that I like really resonate with, and I'll follow them or just say, hey man, this art's great. Like, if you ever need anything, let me know. So, you know, occasionally there's some stuff that happens that way. But I mean, the heavy lifting of my work and money comes from just having been doing it for, you know, 10 years or something now at this point. So
yeah, that was a point I was going to say, was like, from everybody I've interviewed, it just seems like it takes about 10 years to make this industry work for you. And it could be 5 years, it could be 15 years, but like 10 years seems to be the average of how long it takes. Like, the amount of persistence you need to have in this industry is just like almost unparalleled. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
It's just not stopping. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is like, you kind of only fail if you quit, you know?
Yes.
If you keep pushing, like, even if you have a rough month, the next one might be better. Or maybe you have 2 rough months and the third one's better. Maybe you have 4, you know, like, and, you know, you've seen those memes and like success stories of like, you know, Apple started in a garage and they pushed through, or like, this business wasn't profitable until year 10, you know, like, and that's, you know, I watch entrepreneur stuff in that type of space very closely. And that's what people don't talk about, is like, most businesses, no matter how big they are, don't profit for the first 5 years. So, you know, when you look at your career in that same way, it's kind of like, oh, okay, even if I fail miserably for the first 5 years, like, that's normal, you know?
Yes.
You know, year 6, 7, 8, like, okay, now I should start seeing some success or whatever that looks like. But, you know, we get into this industry and we want to make $1 million day one, be successful day one, pay our bills. And that's just not the reality of like the way that a business works in general.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, you know, we are the product, we are our art to some extent. So it's a little more personal when it takes 5 years for somebody to...
Identity issues.
Yeah. And there's so many millions of things that can go into that. But yeah, that's just what that's, you know, if I could tell my younger self something, or, you know, when people always ask me like that type of thing, I'm just like, patience. Just show up every day, do the thing every day, patience. And that's...
Yeah, you've already answered the final question of the show now, so we can move on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so important. It's so important.
It's the impossible task, but it's the only thing that pays off, I guess, to say.
Yeah.
That's not true. I mean, showing up is...
Well, a lot of things...
Showing up is what pays off, but patience is sort of the thing that brings the peace through it all, I guess.
It's the necessary way to get there without a heart attack.
Or giving up. If you don't have patience, you'll just give up, and you'll just be like, oh, well, it's not working. So,
hey everyone, if you're using Dropbox or Google Drive to send your clients their music, let's talk about how you can supercharge your studio's workflow with one collaboration tool called FilePass. Here are just a few ways that FilePass can help you collaborate with your clients. First, your clients can leave their timestamp feedback directly in FilePass from any device while they're listening to their music. Second, their comments turn into a tidy to-do list for you. Simply mark each comment as done while doing revisions. Third, all your hard work is protected using their download paywall. This means the artists you work with can't download their files until they've paid in full. Finally, FilePass makes collecting massive files easy. Just send an upload link to your client, and they can upload files as large as 1 terabyte directly into their project without needing their own FilePass account. As a Secret Sonics listener, you can get 20% off your first year of FilePass by going to filepass.com/secretsonics, and there's a link for it in the show notes below, so go check it out. All right, back to the episode. Yeah, well, you know, you mentioned like how like a year 5 or 6 or 7, you can't always, it's hard to kind of gauge, am I getting there? Will this work out by year 10? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you were kind of telling me about like, before we started recording, about like gauging your success, gauging where you're at in the industry.
Yeah.
You want to share with the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, my thing is like, it is hard to gauge. And that's something I've struggled with a long time. Even as like artists, I think, you know, struggle to gauge success. And I think putting goals out is like part of it. But I mean, my thing is like, I just want to work on a lot of music, you know, because I think at the end of the day, like that's what leads to the thing that we're talking about, the success of, you know, nobody, like, there's no successful mixer out there. There's no successful, like, even songwriter or artist out there who's like, oh yeah, I wrote one song and that was it. And then it was amazing. It was huge. And I retired because of it. It's always like, oh no, I did 400, 500, 600. So like, you know, I started just applying that to the idea of what I'm doing of, I just want to work on as much music as possible. And A, it's going to make me better. B, it's just going to keep me busy. C, if I do 10,000 songs, like eventually something's going to stick, you know, like eventually somebody's going to know me for something, or eventually, you know, if I do 10,000 songs, like my chances of winning a Grammy are higher, or my chances of just pushing the needle forward as far as culture goes are higher, you know, because they're just, you're making the odds bigger. And the same thing with like being an artist, you know, and there's a level to say that like there has to be quality in that, like, but quality comes with quantity, I think, to some extent.
Yes.
If you're really caring and putting like as much energy as you can into it. So it is a balance, but you know, same thing with just being an artist. Like you can't just put out one song and then be upset when it doesn't do anything. Like you kind of have to.
I know. I see that so much with artists of like, they struggle they work their asses off to get out that first single. And then they look way too deeply into what other people think about it.
Yeah.
Or they're just so perfectionistic about even just letting that first song go. And I was talking to an artist that came to me for mixing help, and like she needs a bit more than that. She needs like you know, drum editing, and I don't even know if this is gonna work out, you know. But like I basically told her, I was like, listen, like I know this song is really important to you, but you have to understand that this is not the only song. Like this can't be the only song. Like at a certain, it's almost more important that you let the song go than you perfect this song, because until you put out this song, you're not going to get to the next song.
Yeah.
And like I'm like, unfortunately, this is not going to be your hit. Like you need to put out a bunch more songs. Like this is.
People come to me all the time and ask for like, you know, mix tips, or like they'll send me a song and be like, what do you think of the mix? And I'll, you know, usually just give them notes or tell them thoughts or whatever it may be. And sometimes they'll tweak it and they'll come back and they'll be like, what do you think now? And like, whatever, you know, like, and they'll keep coming back. And I'm just like, look, like at this point, you're going to become a better mixer by just calling it a day on that song. Like you're not getting more mixing experience by tweaking 100 times. You're getting more mixing experience by mixing 40 songs in that same amount of time.
Exactly.
Like you don't get experience chasing your own tail, you know, like you're running in a circle at that point. You're not like running forward. So even if you're running forward really slowly, like
that's a quotable quote.
Yeah. Like you're still going somewhere rather than like just chasing your own tail. And I think it's easy to get caught in that sort of echo chamber of just chasing your own tail.
Yeah.
And just being so like kind of close-sighted to it. Whereas if you kind of just open your
myopic,
ideas,
right?
Yeah, like if you just open your eyes to more opportunities, I think that's where you kind of actually gain experience. You know, like even beyond mixing, you know, there's other things that I've done throughout my career. There's other things I still do. Like I just recently took a random job recording audiobooks where I just sit in the studio and the talent's in there reading a book and I follow the script and punch, record, and take notes, and like that makes me a better mix engineer. Like it has nothing to do with mixing even a little bit. I'm literally hitting record, reading an audiobook script and doing that. But it makes me a better mixer because I'm more attentive. Like it's gotten me more familiar with working out of different studios. Like it's gotten me more familiar with working with talent. Like, so like you just need more experience in all aspects, and everything affects everything. So it's totally that, you know, and I used to do a lot more like sound for picture, TV, radio work. That made me a better mixer too, because again, like you're working on tighter deadlines, you're working quicker, you're working with bigger sessions, you're working 2 pictures, so you start to visualize things differently. I would, you know, if I didn't have that experience, like my mixes wouldn't sound the way that they do today, because, you know, it all adds up to certain things. So yeah,
right.
You know, if I would have just sat on one song and been like, no, I don't want to record audiobooks. I have this one song that I'm working on that I'm going to tweak 100 times. Like, it's obvious there's more, you know, experience to be had in doing more. And again, there has to be a point where something has to keep you in check as far as quality goes, because you can't just throw a limiter on the mix bus and be like, yeah, I mixed the song. Like there has to be some level to the art still. But yeah, that's my long ramble on.
So your goal is to mix. You told me 300 songs this year.
Yeah, I think I did a little over 200 last year, and I'd love to hit 3 this year. So yeah, about halfway through the year currently, so we'll check in. But
how are you going to get enough artists to work with you to get 300 songs?
Well, that's the